Hello and welcome to Star Citizen Sunday with me, Ryan, aka Stifu Messiah. This is a weekly show which covers all from the world of Star Citizen over the past week. Links are provided in the description if you would like to check out anything I mentioned in more detail. So let's get on with the show. On this week's show we have... Oh, who cares? It was CitizenCon. Let's just talk about that. If you missed it or haven't even heard, there was CitizenCon 2014, which happened yesterday. It started... When did it start? It was about 3 o'clock in the morning, and me being me, it got to about 2 o'clock in the morning, and I wasn't able to sleep, so I thought, well, what's another hour? Turns out the actual thing was 2 hours long, and I was going to play Expo in Manchester the next day, so probably not the best choice, but hell, I'm glad I did. It started with Sandy Gardner just introducing and announcing the golden ticket winners who, if you attended the event, you all had your little bags and gift packs, and so many had a golden ticket, which means you won a ship, or I think there was a graphics card as well from AMD. After the initial introduction, there was a video just showing how far Star Citizen has come since the initial $2 million Kickstarter pledge. It went through all the events that had happened over the 2 years, right up to sort of Gamescom with the new hangars, the Murray Cup, and it is incredible to see how far we've come. Not to mention, when you look at the Hornet from the original Kickstarter video to what it is now with its PBR texturing, and it is a long way, and it's definitely something for Chris Roberts to be proud of. So, talking of Chris Roberts, he was then on stage after the video had finished, and he went through a report, an in-depth report from every studio, apart from Redacted, obviously, because we're not supposed to know who they are. Ilphonic. And it just showed us what they've been doing this year and what we can expect from them next year. Now, he did mention that, because it started with the LA studio, which is his own studio based in Santa Monica. He said how this year, you know, they're looking at doing the esports series. There's obviously Squadron 42, there's the multi-crew gameplay, not to mention, you know, next year there's a lot of... everything's coming out. That's when the game is supposed to be released. So for the LA one, we went through all the team, met up with them, what their best parts were, what they're most excited for, and after the video, Alex Mabry was on stage, and Alex Mabry is the executive producer for Star Citizen, so a very high-ranked official in the Star Citizen echelons. They basically just chatted about how they've come to where they are and where they're heading to. We saw what they will be working on from now on, which is the ship pipeline, the FPS module production, and the community management. They're all based in LA, and they're going to continue work with that. After that, it was the Foundry 42 studio report, which is based in Manchester. This is the Squadron 42 group who are creating the single-player missions, fronted by Chris Roberts' brother, Aaron. What they had to say was that they are working on a couple of capital ships. Now, they said couple, and we know of the Bengal carrier being a capital ship. I don't think we've heard of the second one, so it'll be interesting to see what that looks like. Now, they're also, I'll put up a video now, this only a short one, it's the Shuban mining base, and this place is huge. It's 6 kilometres in size, which I know the Bengal carrier is about 1 kilometre, isn't it, or 1 mile long. So it is massive, and there's 26 landing pads, all separate for you to get into the Shuban mining base. Now, they've had to create the full interior for this place. We see a lot of this during the Squadron 42 reports, and it sounds like it's going to be, because I know the Squadron 42 is coming out in episodes, it'll be 1 to 10 missions in the first episode, and I wouldn't be surprised if this mining base is the hub for the first lot of missions. I don't know how it will incorporate into the actual missions themselves. I mean, maybe there was a Vandal attack and we've got to investigate. It could be pirates. We could have just lost contact with this base, or they've sent out a distress signal. They may need protection. It sounds like there's going to be like a lot of FPS on it as well, so we fly there, land, look inside. I mean, will it be like Dead Space? You know, will it have that sort of level of atmosphere? I really hope so. They wanted you to know that this hasn't been textured yet. It's all grey boxing. It looks fantastic as it is, but it's not got its textures. Now, as I said, this is expected next year. We're not sure when next year, probably late on, and as we know, there'll be missions 1 to 10. Now, I can just imagine playing this with a joystick, the Oculus Rift. Not to mention, you can obviously play it cooperatively, so you can have, if there was more than, you know, if you're on a mission where there's more than one person involved, NPC characters helping you, then you can actually put in your own teammates to be your wingmen and come in and hopefully go through the whole game cooperatively. Now, while we caught up with everyone, listened to their favourite parts, they also mentioned that the emissions and the power management gameplay will be adding imminently. So they said you can go cold, you can power down all your engines, and your emissions will be 0, so you will not be able to be seen. So if you're being chased in the persistent universe, you will end up, you can fly into an asteroid field, hopefully maybe land on an asteroid or fix to an asteroid, or just hide behind one and just power down and you will not be found. Now, we also saw about the AI in the persistent universe, and I'll hopefully show you some footage depending if I can get any, but it's to do with the people walking. It's just a test at the moment where they've got people walking around in a bar. He says that there'll be people working in the bar, and also that this is a good part, an area for Squadron 42, who are working very closely with the Moonclider people, bringing this Kythera AI to the game, because obviously if Squadron 42 is the first real missions we see, then the AI will be very important within this game, so they are working close together, getting it working properly. Also, something called smart objects was talked about during this AI, and it's to do with the NPC characters interacting with items, so they will know where to sit. The barman will know who to serve, sweeping up his bar. Everyone will be doing something for a purpose, so it will appear like a living environment. And again, they also mentioned that when on, say, Squadron 42, when you're on a capital ship, you'll see AI performing tasks. They'll have a schedule, they'll be sticking to a schedule, which would make it seem, again, like you're in a living universe and this ship is alive. There was also a little clip when they mentioned making the flight more advanced. Now, I don't know if this is just to do with AI, but it shows a bit of an AI flying around the mining Shuban base, but in very close proximity to the walls and to the buildings. Which, if we can do that ourselves and see crew members or NPC characters following us through these places, it will make it very interesting to try and escape from maybe the Vandal, for instance. Something I also picked up on this was he mentioned about AI groups working together on capital ships or multi-crewed ships to coordinate together and become more effective. So there will probably be complete pirate ships out there that'll have no real players on and will be completely AI driven, who will be all working in real time together, going from turrets to the engines to fix the engines, maybe getting in fighters and coming out and engaging you. So there's a lot of work to be done, and it doesn't sound like it's going to be easy, but these people at Moonclider, I think the majority of them are rocket scientists, literally, so I'm sure they've got it covered. So when we returned back to the stage after this video, Erin was on stage, Chris Roberts' brother, and he was just sort of explaining what the workload is for the next, sort of, I suppose, year. It's the next pipeline for Foundry 42. As always, Arena Commander is up there at the top because it's out there, that's the test bed. There was capital ship systems that they're working on, which I suppose will be needed for the Squadron 42 missions. Component concepts, I assume for your ships, all the separate components you'll need, like cooling systems, navigation, tracking. All this will be needed to be concepted first before it can be created. And also the character pipeline. I'll show some pictures now if I can get some of just the different characters, and there's going to be a lot of variation, so it does feel like a living world. So you're not, like in Grand Theft Auto, bumping into the same person constantly. Now, while Erin was on stage, Chris Roberts and obviously Erin discussed between them that Volume 1 of Arena Commander should be out before the end of this year, which would make a very nice Christmas present. The building in the lobby system, making it a bit more improved. There's major improvements to the maps, Broken Moon and Dying Star maps. The sizes are doubled. There's going to be new assets and materials, and lighting will be affected as well. They're creating something called Large World. I mentioned in one of the Star Citizen Sundays, I think it was last week, and it doesn't really go into too much detail. The basic of it is that we're currently running, CryEngine currently runs at a 32-bit precision. Now they're doubling that to 64-bit precision, which means that they can move from maps which are about 8 kilometers in size, in scale, to millions of kilometers. So although it's double precision and it's doubled the amount of bit, it's not 8 to 16 kilometers, it's going to be millions of kilometers, which is going to be huge. They did say they'll be doing this in about 2 months. So they also say they're going to improve the New Horizons Speedway. It's going to be more interesting, apparently. They're improving the missiles, and they're also improving the guidance systems. So it's to do with the signatures that these missiles give off that are able to be picked up. They're also implementing new countermeasures, new ways to break and hamper the enemy lock-on. I assume it's going to be much like the commercial for the Cutlass, where he does a U-turn as these missiles are flying towards him, and then can continue on towards the Vandal once the missiles have turned around and headed back for him. So it's not going to be literally, if it's locked onto you, it's locked onto you. There's no way of escaping it, you know, unless you use a flare or a chaff. So it should make gameplay a lot more interesting, a lot more versatile. So Chris also mentioned that when version 1.0 comes out, there will be different types of radars. We've mentioned missiles, which again will create better gameplay. and you can manage your own signature, so you can manage your heat and your electromagnetics, as mentioned before. They're also improving the proximity warning, which is when you get too close to something. If you know you're not going to crash because you can clearly see you can get through, you'll always get this warning saying you are too close, or proximity damage or whatever. And they're going to make sure that's not as, I suppose, responsive. Now, he mentioned how he really likes a lot of the cinematic stuff that people are doing with Arena Commander. He says it's better than some of their stuff that they put out. But he also mentions that they're going to improve the cameras for Spectator and make them a bit more cinematic, so they will look a lot cooler. And he's also going to roll this out as like a sort of a tool for people to use when they're creating their own cinematic scenarios. So we should get our hands on them pretty soon, I think. And I think that's version 1.0. So again, in 1.0, he says there'll be new weapons and new parts for the ships. And an example he gave was that the Hornet has 60 items attached to it. And all these 60 items can be swapped in, taken off. You can do a lot with your ships. He also mentioned things like targeting systems will be swapped out. These will all have trade-offs. So some of them will weigh more, some of them will use more power or use less power, which in turn will give more emissions and signatures so you can be seen. He also mentioned there's going to be a lot of balancing to the weapons which needs to be done. They're improving the leaderboards. There's going to be much more sortable columns, so it's going to be easier to understand and a lot more in-depth information. Not sure what he means, he didn't go into specifics, but we'll see. So after that, we saw the new Cutlass commercial. At the end, the person comes out of the Cutlass, takes off the helmet, and it's a lady. Now apparently it was Sandy Gardner who did the motion capture for this, so she's walking how Sandy walked. And with the new commercial being up, Chris Roberts mentions how the Cutlass is available for sale, and it is available now. It's the new 2945 range, so the next year's ships. You've got the black, which is the original, the basic Cutlass, the red, which is a medical search and rescue type ship, the blue, which is a police bounty hunter with holding cells. The brochure's available. We'll probably cover this later on in the programme. I'm just getting the Citizen Con out first. And after that, we went to the Turbulent crew, who are based in Montreal. Now, these guys are responsible for the web platform, the organisations, the forums, leaderboards, even the 3D holo viewer, which is a very cool feature. Now, one of the stretch goals which Turbulent are going to be looking into was the current known star map. And they mentioned in there that for this next year they're going to look into creating that. So it's these guys that are going to put that out to us on the website. I believe it's called the Galactopedia. I'm not sure if that's the same thing. So they've got a lot of work to do there. We also saw a little picture of so many little icons making up the Star Citizen emblem. And these icons are actually all of the organisation's logos in one picture. There are apparently 9,800 organisations and logos used. I'll see if I can find an image. If not, don't shoot me. So they're also responsible for the 2.0 organisations drop, which will bring in the basics friends list and deep game integration. So when we returned to the stage, there was Ben Lesnick and James Pugh, who were there to talk about the community and about Turbulent's future. And Ben also gave a big thank you to the whole community and to Chris Roberts, and it was very nice of him to say so, because the thing is, everyone is appreciative of everyone. That's why this production works so well, because we are so grateful to Chris Roberts and his team for creating this, but with it being publicly kickstarted and funded, they are heavily grateful to us for doing that. So it's a win-win situation for both parties. After that, we went to Behaviour, who are also in Montreal, apparently just down the road from them, and they currently employ 40 people, and they are responsible for flare objects, the new hangars, the Moby glass, which we will get into, and they also help design some planetside areas. Now, when they were discussing the Moby glass, they are apparently creating an operating system for it, as it's going to be like having a mobile phone which has its operating system. It's going to have its own apps, and there's some pictures and videos of this. I'll see if I can get them up without having to download the full live stream itself. But on there you can see certain screens like buying clothing, buying weapons. I think there was a microwave gun for $1,000 or something, or 1,000 UEC or UCC. I can't remember what the currency is called. But I'll try and get some images up for you to see some of these screens, because it has a good sort of indication of what we can expect to buy for our characters, how we can, change our characters and identify ourselves as unique people. And for the next year ahead, they will be working on Persistent Universe, planetside locations, all the interiors. I think they are responsible for, or the majority of them anyway. Obviously the Moby glass and the apps, and certain planets with the shops and the franchises and so forth. So again, they've got a lot of work ahead of them. I think everyone does, to be fair. So after that, he mentioned the Origin 890 jump concept sale, which went live that evening. They're $600 each. They went live and immediately within 1 minute sold out. They rolled them out like they did the Reclaimer, where I think every 5 hours, so there was one at that time, then one at midnight, and again, we've smashed the next stretch goal thanks to the 890 jump, I assume, and probably the Cutlass as well. So again, I'll cover this ship in a bit more detail later on. We can see the brochure, which explains a lot of different planet-side locations, which all look gorgeous. I'd love to visit these places. And Chris Roberts explains how seeing all these different ships in the universe will make it feel real. The fact that thousands of ships have sold, not just small ships, but these frigates and the Reclaimer, so many of these are sold, thousands of them. So if you're in space, you'll see all these different scale ships and it'll just feel real in the persistent universe. So the next studio was the Austin studio in Texas, which is the Cloud Imperium one, which is where everything used to be based until I think Chris Roberts moved over to LA. And it started sort of talking about Tony Zurovec, who couldn't make it, which he's got a legit reason, we can let him off. He's now a father to a baby boy, which is very lovely to hear. But we got to hear from Tony Zurovec. He explained how the AI will work and how missions will work and how they'll be dynamic rather than just a basic go here, do this, and then you're done. It will be sort of like you hear a distress call, you go to the location, you find a freighter under attack from pirates, you kill all the pirates but you leave one alive to interrogate, so it sounds like there'll be interrogation involved. And from interrogating this pirate you find out about a pirate outpost which is located in a certain place. So you go there, you destroy the outpost, from there you discover that there is an entire pirate organisation's base located somewhere, and then you go there and you get the treasure and you've got to try and figure out how to get the treasure. It's going to be a very dynamic system that has all worked together well. It'll be a lot better than just go here and do that. Now, when he started talking about the AI involved in the game, it seems very in-depth and very clever with how it works. He says that it's going to be dictated by the economic simulator, which is, again, as we know, there's going to be a full economy in the persistent universe. So that will be what dictates the NPC characters. So if you see an NPC character somewhere, there'll be a reason for him to be there if he's dropping off some freight or some cargo that he's brought. And he says that what it'll do is the reason why someone will be there is because it makes logical sense within the economic simulator for him to be there. So they're not just going to be there because they've been dropped in there. These characters, these NPC characters, are free to roam in the universe as they please. So if one person picks up some equipment that is needed, some scrap metal, say, that is needed in another system or on another planet, then that character you'll be passing him in space as he's going there. Plus other people may be passing him as he's literally going to his ship to take it there, and then other people will be passing him while he's landing on a planet to offload. So there'll be logical sense why these characters are there. Now they're also making the skeleton for the character as well, because at the moment the hips are locked in place, which is why he walks a bit odd, like he needs a poo. They've just realised that if they unlock the hips, it gives that natural motion of, swinging the hips, swinging the shoulders, which is how we all walk. And he also says it'll be unique NPCs, so be able to determine from each character is the fact that they may have a level of intoxication, which would be drinking or maybe even drugs if there's such a thing. I suspect there will be in the persistent universe. The exhaustion of the characters. Now this is interesting because this obviously means that there's going to be some sort of level of fitness. And I don't know, I mean, they did say it's not going to be like an RPG where you have skill sets. I mean, they've implemented breathing in the Arena Commander just to show how much G-force is being placed on him. Does this mean that our players will have an energy level that we have to balance? Did mention that there will be millions of NPCs. It's not just going to be a handful in each place, it's going to be millions that will all be living and working in this environment. So when we returned, there was Sean Tracy on stage. I don't know if you remember, when the Next Great Starship was involved, Sean Tracy was the Crytek engineer who basically said, whether or not they've implemented them into the CryEngine well or not. It sounds like he has left Crytek, because he was the initial person who helped Chris Roberts to decide which engine to use. It was apparently between the Unity engine and this engine, and it was thanks to Sean Tracy that we are using the CryEngine. And so I think it sounds like he's left Crytek and he's now working as our CryEngine engineer person. And so for the future of Austin, what they'll be working on is the Arena Commander, the FPS, the social module, which is like planet-side module with friends, the hangar module, which again they keep mentioning that they're going to bring in separate rooms and things. Also the persistent universe, they are the lead builders for the persistent universe. After that, we got our sneak peek, and the sneak peek was magnificent. And it starts with Sean Tracy. Sean Tracy is actually playing this game I'm not sure if the other person in the cockpit to his left is also playing. It might be an NPC. I don't know if he's just there to make it look like a normal scenario. But they're in the Constellation cockpit and they've just come out of warp and are flying around the Stanton system near the Arcquart planet, which is Stanton 3. Sean Tracy gets up from the cockpit, it spins around, and he has a walk around the ship while it's still flying, which is a big achievement for them. I know this was seen in the multi-crew demo. And he goes into the cargo bay, and it's full. There's a grey cat in there. He's got cargo boxes, looks like some scrap, some tyres. And I can just imagine walking around this as you and your crew are all waiting to land, or even just flying from place to place, you know, and the sounds that are coming from this engine are so intense, it just feels like it's a real location. So he returns back to his chair as Chris Roberts asks him to call down for EDL, which is entry, descent and landing. So apparently we need to sit down to do this. As soon as he did, it switched to a third-person cinematic view. The confirmation was granted, and he then started diving back into first person, started diving into the planet through the planet's atmosphere, and you can see the flare coming up on the front of the ship as it's obviously having to break through the atmosphere. And then once we go through the clouds, it just shows you the planet and how detailed it is, and it shows you this Arcquart planet, which is like a big factory. It's all built by humans, you know, there's no natural land there, it's all just construction and buildings, and you can see ships flying around in lanes, and it is just incredible detail. Don't forget, you will actually be able to get up and walk around your ship and get ready for getting off your ship. It's not a case of you have to sit and you're locked to the chair while it comes into land. You can be free to do what you please as you're landing. And as you can see on his screen, we are in Area 18, District C, which is the Arcquart. And I wonder if you need to remember this, because if you've ever parked somewhere and you've gone off to go shopping and you come back and you can never find your car, will it be the same way? You know, there's so many landing bays that you will have to remember where yours is, you know, in case you get onto a tram and get taken to a different area, never find your ship again. So I mean, we made to pay attention to that. But as we're coming into land, you can see like a 300i taking off. And the level of detail is incredible. There's dust kicking up from the bottom. You can see all these ships in the distance. And then finally for the landing, it switches again to third person, and he's down. And then it goes into the ship, first person again for Sean Tracy, and he exits the ship. The cargo comes down, and he just has a look around. There's so much going on. It is like a living, breathing planet. And then he turns around to go into the building. Two people come walking towards him, and I assume these are security guards, or maybe they are there to unload the cargo as they walk towards there. I don't think they've implemented them to do that, because when they get to the cargo, they just stop. But it's for demonstration purposes. As he enters the building, well, you can see all these boards up which look futuristic, and they're like hollow boards that display different things, maybe the weather or the news that's happening in that area. You can hear announcements going on. It does feel like a living, breathing area. And one of the announcements was about discharging your weapon and how it's prohibited. I don't know whether or not that means that we'll be able to, whether or not our weapons will be holstered the minute we set down on a planet side where they're prohibited, or we are allowed to bring them out. And if we brought them out, we would be arrested or maybe opened upon by officials, you know, police. We're still to see that. So he enters this building. You can hear someone in the background saying, "Next!" And so he walks through this door, and it's like a scanning, like a checkpoint or a customs, you know, when you come off a plane. And the voice is superb. It just captivates realism. Whereas a lot of games, you hear the voice acting and it sounds a bit washy, it's not real. Whereas this sounds like it's a bloke who's behind this desk and he's sat there for 9 hours a day and he's bored of it. You know, it's like he does it over and over again. You get scans for maybe illegal things you've got on you. It shows you a picture of him being scanned with a little sidearm. So I wonder if it'll tell them what weapons are on you. And then he enters Arcquart, which it looks like it's a big shopping centre. It's the centre of Arcquart where everyone is. You can see bars and you can see the dumpers depot, which we've seen. Now, Chris Roberts starts talking over this now and explaining what we're seeing. He mentions that the entry to planets will be seamless. It's not going to be like a loading screen where you have to sit there and wait for it to load. He said it's going to be very immersive because it'll just be one smooth action. And you can walk around your ship, so it generally won't feel like a loading screen at all. It will literally be like you can still play around and do things in your ship while you are going to planetside. I think it's a good idea. I mean, obviously it would have been perfect if we could fly in ourselves, but you would have a lot of people dive bombing onto planets, and if you saw me doing some EVA before, you'll see that I'm not the best at landing smoothly. And so he explains how this is the main area of Stanton. He says you would go to this area to buy a ship or to buy items. It's like the shopping area. And he also mentioned that, you know, you'd go to the bar off in the distance to get missions, or maybe down a dark alleyway to get like a dark mission. And he says that a lot of the planets will be big, which will have lots of landing locations and lots of locations to visit. Earth or Terra, for example. He did say some will be small, but they'll all vary because it's obviously, they're not all going to be the same. And he did say that all of these places will have this much fidelity. He said that there were 30 million polygons to this, and obviously it needs to be optimized, but that's a big count, and it will look way better than any Xbox or console game, like dedicated first-person shooter game. Not to mention that this is actually a space sim, and it's only recent. Well, it's not only recently, but it's only one of the Kickstarters that has granted us this first-person shooter, and they are making a better first-person shooter than one we've probably seen to date. Now, also another effect of the economy, it says that if this planet is thriving and doing well, which will be real time, it will be driven by how the planet is actually doing and the actions of everyone. So if it's a thriving planet, then there'll be a lot of people, everyone everywhere will be doing things and working. But then if it's a non-thriving planet, there'll be graffiti, there'll be crime. And it's at this point that he mentioned that there will be NPC PvE. So, I mean, I don't know whether that will bring mugging, I assume it will, or hold-ups, but he mentioned a while ago about getting into a bar brawl and then going to prison, and so it sounds like there will be hand-to-hand combat, because obviously you can't discharge your weapon, and if you did, if someone came up to you with a knife and threatened you and you shot them, then you would, I suppose, be the first person to shoot, so you would be in trouble for shooting and discharging your weapon when you were told not to. So I expect there'll be some form of hand-to-hand combat where if someone throws a punch at you, you can do something back. So after a little wandering around this area, he entered the dumper's depot, and you can see adverts on the side. Again, very living, very breathing universe and world. As you enter the dumper's depot, you can hear the shop worker sort of in a bit of frustration, and then he turns around and says, "Well, come take a look around, you know, everything's for sale." Again, perfect commentary, perfect voice. And then the doors open, and you can see this huge, just hornet being ripped apart by automated hands. And that looks amazing, it really does. And just the detail and the lighting from it. I wouldn't want to go in there in case it starts grabbing me. I'm sure, you know, all these parts that are being ripped off will eventually be available for sale in this place. So it ends there. That's the end of the gameplay trailer. And after that was shown, he just starts talking about the roadmap and what they plan to do chronologically. So he did say dates are expected to change. So don't just, you know, see these as gospel. And he says late 2014, so before the end of the year, Arena Commander version 1.0 will be made available. After that, early 2015, we shall see the first-person shooter module, which we are going to see at the end of this month at PAX Australia, which is very exciting, and we'll just have digested all this by then, I expect. But after that, there'll be the planet side and the social module launch. After that will be 2.0 of the Arena Commander, which will include multi-crew battles and gameplay. And he mentions that this is the testbed for the persistent universe. Everything we do in the Arena Commander will show them how it might work in the persistent universe, rather than just chucking it all in there and then everything blowing up and going to pot. He also mentioned that there'll be, with 2.0, there will be like the attack and defend the Idris game mode. And he also said there'll be a cargo run game mode where you've got to get some cargo from A to B. The team on the ship will be trying to get it there, and the team off the ship will be trying to destroy them, which sounds amazing. After that will be the Squadron 42 Chapter 1 release, and he says there'll be puzzles on it, there'll be FPS. It's going to be a 50-hour game, and it sounds like each mission will be 1 hour, because he mentions there'll be 5 episodes altogether, each episode being 1 to 10 missions, and he'll release these every 3 months. So the first one will come out 2015, we'll play through that 10 missions, and then 3 months later down the line, the next one will be released. And it's while these are being released that we'll get to play the alpha of the persistent universe. He also said that he would happily put up Squadron 42 as a game on its own against any AAA game that is out, so that proves his confidence in it. Now, he mentioned that they will be adding to the persistent universe, and we know this, he sees it as a 10-year project, and they are going to keep adding DLC as time goes on. It's going to have a long lifespan. And to finish up, he just gave thanks to everyone. They had all the crew, the staff on stage, well, who attended, and it was just a round of applause each, and then he wanted to go for a drink. So that concludes CitizenCon.